Welcome back to the Dave Elliott Show, Friday afternoon. I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to the weekend, and I am also looking forward to chatting for just a few minutes with County Commissioner Georgia Hiller. Hi, Georgia.
Hi, how's it going, Dave?
Oh, fantastically well, thank you. Yesterday on the air, I read an email thread that was sent to, that you sent. I guess it was started with John Lundeen sending something out. You responded to that. It wound up getting to Brent Batten at the Daily News, and there were some exchanges back and forth between you two, and then Phil Lewis, the editor of the paper, got involved in this. And what it boiled down to was some statements that Brent Batten had in his column, I guess, yesterday. What was the title of it? When is a question more than a question, or something like that? And you had asked the question that Mr. Lundeen had raised, which had to do with Mr. Coletta, the county commissioner's son-in-law, possibly being favored in a deal to build an incinerator out in Immokalee. Do I have that about right? There was a question about that.
That's a lot more specific than the question I asked.
No, but I mean, it was
the gist of it is correct.
Yeah, and so you simply asked the question to all the respondents of the original email, correct? Which included Brent Batten and a bunch of other people.
Not exactly. What I did was I asked the question of Lundeen and our county manager Leo Oakes. Now, one thing you need to understand is all my emails are public record. And what that means is unless there's a statutory exemption, there are no secrets about what I write. So everybody and anyone should and can be able to read my statements, questions, analyses, whatever I put in writing, again, unless there's a statutory exemption, is public. So I have no secrets, and I'm committed to transparency, and my feeling is if someone sends me an email, regardless of who's copied on that email, when I respond, I just hit reply all, and whoever happens to be on that email will get my answer because it's public anyway.
And the reason this is important is because in Batten's column, he sort of made an issue of the fact that you were trying to ask a question that he thought had some implications in it to a lot of people, including about 36 reporters.
Yeah, and quite frankly, 36 reporters can read my emails any time of the day for any reason they want, and they don't even have to tell me why.
Yeah.
Now, here's the irony of what Brent did, and I actually find it quite humorous. He found it wrong that I responded to everybody who was on the original email, and particularly the press. And yet he then turned around and took my question, published it on the second page of the Naples Daily News. So he then took that email that I had sent to, a very few number of people, but again, that anyone could read if they wanted to, and disseminated it to tens of thousands of people. How ironic is that?
Well,
it goes to show you the stupidity of his article.
All right, and you obviously disagree with his premise there.
Oh, absolutely. So my feeling is there isn't a single question that I ask that the public doesn't have the right to know.
Now, what about the question?
So my feeling, and here, let me just interrupt you for a minute.
Sure.
Let me make it very clear. Phil Lewis would like me to ask questions behind closed doors.
To answer
so
questions,
that when to ask questions behind closed doors, so that when the answers come out, the public doesn't hear. Well, that's just not the way it's going to happen. If I have a question, if there's something I don't know, I think everybody should know that I'm asking the question, and whatever I receive as the answer should get also.
Okay.
I don't agree with Phil's way of doing business. He's backroom cloak and dagger. I want to be out front without any secrets.
Well, those are pretty strong words for the editor of the paper. I do know that
I like Phil, but we disagree on that.
And he advocates for transparency in government, and he advocates for sunshine all the time. So you say if it's good enough for the commission, it ought to be good enough for the paper, basically.
I don't think that there is any differentiation in the law.
Now, what about the question that was asked? What about the question?
Go ahead.
I want to ask about the question that was asked about Mr. Coletta's son-in-law.
Yep.
Are you making any implications with that question? Why did you forward it to Mr. Oakes? Was it not sent to him anyway by John Lundeen?
No, I didn't get that impression. That wasn't the impression I had from John's email. John's email really was focusing on the fact that this incinerator business was being placed out in a mock would be, detrimental to the quality of life in that community by comparison to a program that he was recommending, which would basically be to promote agriculture and agricultural tourism by contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other issue was, tangential at best. When I asked the question, it was addressed to Lundin because it was tangentially referenced, and to Leo Oakes to find out whether or not it was true, or if, in fact, it had or had not happened that Coletta and or his family were attempting to procure federal funds to start a business that would somehow, supply incinerator business and thereby have some benefit from it.
All right.
And it's a very simple question, and quite frankly, a question that if I did not ask would be wrong.
Well, it's no secret that there are several commissioners on the panel who don't get along with each other, and at least publicly there usually are some sparring, and Mr. Coletta would be one of those that you sometimes are at odds with. Don't you think that and I'm just asking you this question as a devil's advocate here, but don't you think that by asking that question and repeating what Mr. Lundin had asked, that you are sort of setting up another confrontation here?
No, not at all. The question is really nothing more than a question, and it is a question that has to be asked and answered, and I have not yet received the answer.
You haven't gotten a yes or a no?
No. Mr. Oakes has not responded to me, and Mr. Lundin hasn't yet proven to me that this has or has not occurred. So I'm still waiting for an answer. And it is definitely a question that has to be asked since the issue was raised, and it has to be answered.
Okay.
So I'm waiting, and no, it absolutely has nothing to do with, Coletta and I having opposing views. Our political philosophies are very, very different. He and I do not see eye to eye on many issues relating to policy. So, yeah, but that's not a bad thing. That's what makes the world go around. Having opposing views is perfectly acceptable in America. That's what's great about our country.
Well, more to come on this, I have no doubt. And
maybe not.
Well,
I just want the answer.
Well, we're in an election. We're in an election year, and it's bound to be an issue in the campaign. I think you'll agree with that.
Maybe not.
Well, since one of the candidates brought it up, that's why I say that.
Possibly,
yeah.
But it may be completely moot, because if Coletta, is not looking for federal funds, or if his family is not looking for federal funds, or alternatively, if there is no incinerator business that establishes themselves out there, et cetera, then the whole issue is moot. But until we know what the answer is, it does remain a valid open question.
Well, we'll leave it right there since the clock has me anyway. And I want to thank you for your time. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. Georgia Hiller, County Commissioner here on the Dave Elliott Show, and we'll be back right after this.